Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and thanks for making the time. Thank you to my esteemed panelists as well for making time for this exciting discussion. I think we've had introductions, but just to recap, my name is Mahima. I'm a partner at McKinsey, and I'd love for our esteemed guests to introduce themselves, and most importantly, also tell us what was that inspiration that motivated to do what you do today.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shivani Poddar. I'm the co-founder and CEO of High Street Essentials, which is a fashion house that runs two brands, D2C, digital-first brands called FabAlley and Indya in the women's wear space. So I see a lot of men here, so unfortunately, you don't have anything for you. But hopefully, for all the women here, you would have, you've experienced the brand. So I started the company about 10 years back, and as Mahima was saying, from a journey perspective, it's 10 years a long time, right? And when I started, I was, my key motivation, I was in the corporate sector. I used to live right here in Mumbai. And the key motivation really was that as a consumer, I was, we didn't have access to good quality fashion brands. And this is 2012, 13. India looked very different from a fashion perspective. So really that story that you hear when people are like, why did you start? And was it because of a need? For me, it was because I felt that, where is fashion in this country? Why is there no access? I used to travel to, in my job, I used to live in places like Pondicherry, Kolkata, Surat, places like that. And in a lot of in metros still, like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, you still had fashion, but, across the country, there was none. So that's when I really thought that, why don't kind of my own journey as a consumer, where I've seen that there is very little option, why don't we kind of build something from India by Indian women for Indian women and really kind of say that can we build large global brands out of India? So that was the first time and that was the first thought in 2012, 13. And, 10 years, of course, the journey's been absolutely amazing. Lots of ups and downs. And the early years, we were only online. So we started our company as an online first digital only brand. So we were essentially only selling through our website, through marketplaces, and the business there was a lot of acceptance. So we kept growing. And now today we're a fairly omni-channel company on a healthy 50-50 online offline mix. And so we're present with about 400 points of sale across retail. We're selling, domestically through online and also internationally through online. So maybe some topics we'll touch upon eventually as we go, but a lot of international acceptance. And I think that's something for D2C. I must say that I think all of us sitting here today on this panel, and I'm sure a lot of you, those who want to build brands or are already building brands in this country, there is so much that can be done in this space. And hence the topic today was, just how we can build amazing D2C or digital first brands within a few years today has never happened before in this country or anywhere in the world. So I think it's a great opportunity and very excited to be here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Shivani.
Yeah, hi, I'm Vedang. When I started, I was 23. So a lot of my conviction on why a business and how it works is very different from what it is today. But the main reason we started is because, well, two reasons. One, in India, there's no really strong casual wear brand. It's a very fragmented market. Like even in ethnic wear, it's a very fragmented market. I think Manyavar has done a great job consolidating that, and now India. And we felt the other reason was we sell a lot of character merchandise like Superman, Batman, and things of that nature. We felt this is a $250 billion industry worldwide, but in India, you only get it at Fashion Street. The main reason is because the originals are not affordable. Like if you try to buy any jersey also of any sports team, it was not affordable. And we thought that let's bring affordable merchandise to India. That's the reason we started, or at least this is the reason I tell people we started. The main reason, I'll be very honest with everyone here, I was 1 year out of engineering. Me and my two friends had about 5 lakh in the bank. And the easiest thing to start was to buy a cupboard of t-shirts and print it. So that's how we started.
Thanks, Vedang. Shankar.
So my story is slightly older than Vedang's. I was 38 when I started out in 2013. And I've always been in the beauty and personal care industry ever since I graduated from college. What I like about the space is, at heart, I'm still a student of science. So what I like about the space is the ability to apply science, and also I like good design. So this is one of those verticals which combines science and good design. And from a market perspective, in India, we are at a very early stage when it comes to adoption of beauty products and adoption of categories within beauty products. So overall, very exciting time to be building something in the beauty and personal care space with Plum.
Thank you so much, Shankar. Let me kick this off with, with the first question. The topic today is technology, and we're talking Superman T-shirts, we're talking festive wear, and we're talking hair serums. So, how does technology fit in with what all of you do? And it would be great if we could talk about category-specific nuances, and in any part of the value chain, where are you seeing that disruption the most?
So for apparel specifically, apparel is a very complicated supply chain process, right? So for every shirt that each of you are wearing, there are, the fabric, the stitching, the yarn count, there are so many technical things, right? So one is on the entire back end, how do you build better quality faster? One is that aspect of tech, but I think the real thing where we're trying to make a difference, and the only reason I call ourselves D2C or digital first and not an offline brand, even though we do have 50% offline distribution, is on how we think of supply chain. So for us, I think the idea behind supply chain is to say that can we be super fast, super quick, and can we respond to the market significantly sooner than how any of our traditional competitors would. So what that means is that what we do is we use technology to the extent that we've got in-house tech to say that, say for the dress that I'm wearing today, what is the length, what is the color, what is the print, what is the sleeve length. So there are so many parameters on which you can rate every piece of clothing and then say that what is selling and what is not selling in very simple words. And that helps and that technology and that kind of quickness from a response perspective can go to my design team and say that, all right, a white t-shirt, short sleeves, short XYZ color, XYZ print is actually the top seller within 7 days today. Which means within a week, I know what's going to sell, what's not going to sell, and we can replicate that and actually make design a machinery as opposed to like a designer sitting somewhere and sketching things out. And I think that's what technology has done for us. So for somebody like us, which is a fast fashion brand, we're making like 2,000, maybe 2,500 styles a year. And in that, the hit rate going wrong can happen, right? Like maybe 200 styles the consumers don't like. So what tech does for us is it actually says that the probability of a consumer not liking A is XYZ, like it's 10% or it's 20%. So with very high degree of accuracy, we can design and we can buy. And I think that is the difference between any new age brand which can use tech versus a brand that's planning 12 months in advance. It'll take them forever to change their supply chain. And I think that's the real game changer. And that's what we're really using technology for differently.
Vedang? Yeah.
So definitely, I think data on supply is super critical, which Shivani has covered. I also feel one of the biggest things that tech has enabled is to really go digital. We're primarily an online brand. The issue with apparel is if you wanted to, for example, sell a product, around India, we'll just stick to India, you had to have that product in every store. So let's say this t-shirt which I want to sell. If I want to sell it in Nagaland, I would have to have a small, medium, large, XL, XXL, all of this in Nagaland, some in Kanyakumari, some in Kashmir, stores in Bombay. But because you are digital, there is a central inventory that you can have. Maybe you can have 3 or you can have 4. Each of these 4 can be sold at any of the pin codes that you assign. If one hub is out of stock, you can put it in the other hub. I think this is what's actually revolutionized it for us. Why it was very easy for a D2C brand to scale was because the working capital just made so much more sense when it was centralized. And obviously you have all the data that you can collect once you're online, right? Like, where are my Superman fans and Harry Potter fans, and let's target people of a certain demographic, or someone who has a certain interest, and you can keep slicing and dicing data. I think data is today what brings power, and then technology is just the lever that you use on it. And on the back end, on the demand prediction, we don't just use it for the styles, but what's very critical is if we have 10 or 100 products or whatever it be, real time there is an algorithm that's running that sees what the current inventory is, what the current sales are, when it's going to get sold out, what is going to sell out first, depending on whatever marketing is going on, what is going to have the biggest loss if it sells out. And that prioritization daily changes with our suppliers, and they get, okay, we told you to do the black t-shirt, but the blue selling way more, get that first. So that list priorities goes to every person at every step, whether it's a printing guy, stitching guy, no matter what. So I think technology, and I can go on talking for hours and hours on where all data and tech can be, but one is on the front end and obviously the other is on the back end. And having both of these marry makes a successful business.
Thanks, Vedang. Shankar, I'll throw a different question at you since we talked about, we talked about markets and we talked about India and demand coming from various parts of the country. For a lot of these digital first, I won't say digital only, but digital first brands started off as, these are the pin codes I need to target because that's where my premium audiences are sitting in India. So are these brands like yours and of the other panelists today, are they truly transcending into Bharat beyond India? If that's happening, what's enabling it? And if it can accelerate, what's coming in the way?
This is something that internally within the organization, my favorite topic, because we tend to think that sort of anomaly of that fallacy of people like us is how sometimes marketers end up thinking. And typically, most of at least the emerging brands are based out of the top cities. So this people like us syndrome starts afflicting them. But if you really look at data, like look at us, for example, only about 35% of our sales comes from top 10 cities. Right? 65% has gone beyond. Point number one. Point number two is purchasing power. This is well documented that purchasing power actually is spread out quite widely. India, as I always mention, does not have a wealth problem. It really has a wealth distribution problem. It sometimes has an income problem or a liquidity problem. India doesn't have a problem of wealth really at the retail level. So that wealth is quite more widely distributed than some of us tend to think. And therefore, I think there is demand. So there's no question about it. The issue was ability to reach both digitally and physically in terms of pin codes. Digital was solved with the advent of cheap data and social media and influencers. I think that problem is well solved now. And thanks to all the startups in the logistics space, I think even the physical sort of barriers have been overcome. So typically now we are able to do a T+3 delivery in pretty much every pin code in the country. So this was something I think which was just waiting. The floodgates are waiting to be opened. And to me, it's moved. It's completely illogical to think of any of this as a big city phenomenon. You just have to figure out a way of reaching and servicing the demand that you see.
Thanks for that, Shankar. Vedang and Shivani, both of you talked about how you have both offline stores and then you have your own platform. You've got different channels and then the age-old question of, okay, should I also be listed on some other platform? But what that does is the consumer can access you through multiple ways. Different consumers, same consumer, different time of day, different behaviors. How is this influx of channel conflict and price conflict and what works where? How are you making sense of that in your businesses today?
So, I'd like to split that into two parts. There's a huge online channel and there is an offline channel. And then within each, there are multiple channels. So I think from an online, offline perspective, I think for me, the first thing is to say that there is nothing called we're an online brand, we're an offline brand, we're a website only brand. So the idea is to say that wherever the consumer is, we will be there. So that's the first kind of basic premise for our business, that it isn't about, we're not a channel. So the channel is a way of distributing it, right? And wherever your consumer is buying from, you'll want to go to that channel. In terms of, for us, because we have a kind of a good split between online and offline, I think how we look at it is that the online consumer today is much more value conscious. So, any of you, who've kind of bought, and, I'm sure all of you kind of buy online today, and you will typically look at a 30-40% discount on an average, especially in, consumer, like, in kind of fashion segment. while the offline consumer is looking for a good product, good quality, durability, all of those things. So I think for any business, that's the first step in understanding that who is my consumer and is my consumer different across channels. And if the consumer is different, which is the case for us, if the consumer is different, how do we service them differently? So again, for our business, we're doing completely different collections. So for example, the collection that you see on our online channel is going to be much more value, like it's going to be value driven. While the collection that you see in our offline channel, which is our own stores, large format stores, is going to be much more product driven. And that is something that's because that's what the consumer is asking from us. Sorry. So I think that's how we look at the pricing and the product. Even and I would even go on to urge, everybody to think that even within each channel there are splits, right? So within online we have an international business. So I have like a huge NRI clientele. They're not value conscious. They're not looking at products at like, $15 for them, for example. So can we again build differently for that in terms of design, in terms of like, how Vedang was saying, can we show different products? Can we do personalization? Can we use all of that to ensure that we are servicing different buckets of customers in a different way? And I think that if any business does not do that today, it's going to be very hard to survive. So just that understanding of the whole consumer set and how each channel's consumers, like, so, when Mahima says that, how do you think of channels? I think it's about how do you think of the consumer for each channel and how are they looking at, what's the buying behavior there? So that's how we're looking at it. And we are really dividing our business into saying that, for each channel, what is relevant, what price is relevant, and what product is relevant. And while there is a brand that kind of, the brand thesis or the product is going to be similar in some ways, but the last leg of saying how do we use data to read this customer better and give the customer the right product is how we look at the channel split.
Thanks for that, Shivani. Vedang, we talked about a lot of capabilities so far, technology related, data related. So if I was to expand this whole question, this universe of technology into data, digital, anything and everything to do with all these aspects, which capabilities for your business are you starting to think about insourcing, or at least which would you like to insource versus which are the ones it's okay to keep outside?
Actually, this is a problem I'm pretty sure you also must have faced. Our company, unfortunately, is slightly bigger than what most D2C companies are from an online perspective. So when there are a lot of value creations that happen, we miss a lot of them because we've already crossed it and we've already built it out. And I really wish Shopify was as famous as what it was when we started out. It would have saved me a lot of headache, a lot of money as well. The same thing, I really wish some of the checkout, modules were there 4 or 5 years ago, because we've spent so much trying to perfect the best, like have the best checkout, have the smoothest checkout, get the best cart, auto-detected OTP, and now all of it is just automated. And like it's plug and play. So unfortunately, I think we missed out on a lot of these boats, given where the scale is. And every time, maybe after 2 years, what we are trying to solve today on the machine learning and AI front, that will also be solved and plug and play, but we will be too late for it. So this is one of the biggest issues that we face. But there are a lot of different services that we do use. I think the best thing that could have happened to the digital world is the logistics. There are many startups, and now I wouldn't even call them startups, and even international big players like Blue Dart, FedEx, etc., like solving this, because they are the ones who actually have enabled our business. Without them, there wouldn't have been anything, and that's something that India solved really well compared to most countries. And then it is where we are in digital payments. That's another thing that India is solving compared to like what any other country has really cracked. Both of these things have really enabled the online ecosystem. But to get back and answer your question, I would say what we would love to be solved is this entire supply chain today. For apparel, I'm sure you know that supply chain is very traditional. You still have to go to these big traditional factories. You have to meet with these traditional people. There is very little digitalization of their processes. And we wish that someone would do this really well. I think there are some companies that are attempting to do this. And having a modern industrial backend is what we would love to see.
Got it. Shankar, does that change for you given your portfolio it has an expiry question that you got to keep in mind, even though it's a few years, but you still have to consider it. And second, you've got to also be launching new products. So there's a whole R&D cycle that's happening, and the product is moving off the shelf, and then there are demand spikes that happen. So what kind of capabilities have you really started to develop that help you on that front?
I think as most D2C brands start, we also started life on Shopify. And yes, it does simplify things. And the problem is reverse of what Vedang mentioned. For us, we became so dependent on Shopify that we didn't build any in-house tech at all. So this is the other extreme, right? So it's interesting to see two people at two ends of the spectrum. And as we were discussing just before we got onto the stage, we don't have a tech team in-house as on date. We have a data team, we have a supply chain team, we have a digital analytics team, we have a digital commerce team, but we don't have a core tech team because that's entirely outsourced. And as we needed solutions, the solutions kept being made available, so we're sort of too lazy to go and do it ourselves. But as we now move to the next sort of scale, stage of scale, I feel there are certain advantages to developing things proprietary to one's category, to one's brand, to one's cohort of consumers. So given the pace at which the beauty industry is evolving on the consumer side, it's difficult for us to rely now completely on plug and play off the shelf solutions. So things like understanding how things are moving from the retail shelf, things like how is that correlated to ads which are running in that geography. You have to get to that level of depth now, because if you go on doing things without the data as the backbone, chances are you're going to run a very inefficient ship and miss the bus completely. So for us, therefore, in short, the capabilities that we are sort of hurriedly looking to put in place is this whole integration of data with the physicality of the distribution, along with the front-end tech that we need to bring to the consumer.
Very, very helpful. Vedang, I'm going to throw a slightly out of syllabus question for the topic, but you mentioned that the trends, the business that you have, this is a big trend in the West, right? But not as much in India. But if you compare and contrast the two consumers, how is the Indian consumer different? How is he or she behaving differently when it comes to either apparel category or digital purchase or your specific business? Or any of you, actually.
Yeah. So I think the international, I mean, so I think the two key differences between international consumers and the domestic market that we've seen in the business is that one is that they're a lot more fashion forward, in a way that when you live in New York, you're essentially you're more tuned to what's happening from a fashion segment. So they want products, even Indian products. So even when they buy ethnic wear, they want products which are not like very traditional. They want they want fashion in what they're buying. The second thing is they're not very value conscious, which is an amazing thing for everybody building a brand for this country, because India is a very value conscious country. So when you again selling to a large international market, pricing can be significantly better than what you're selling in India. And hence, I think your whole business, the value proposition, etc., looks very different. So to capture an international consumer, you really need, of course, an A+ product, and you can command more for that A+ product. While if you're looking at a domestic consumer, you can give a good product, but the price is key. So I think that's a big difference that we've seen between the international consumers and domestic consumers. And also, I think in terms of the feedback loop, we see a lot of feedback coming from people. I mean, they're really invested. So you see a lot of feedback coming in, people who buy from us, say in the US or Australia. They would share pictures. They would be very excited to wear Indian wear, right? Because that's not something that you do on a regular basis. So I think there's a lot more engagement from that perspective. But I think really the key thing is on just the product, the quality, the kind of product that they want versus what people today expect in the country for the price that they're paying.
Shankar, any view from you on this, especially since India is sort of catching up to beauty trends?
I think that really was what I was about to say. There's a convergence that is happening faster than it used to. India used to be like 15, 20 years behind the curve on following trends. So there's a lot of convergence happening with respect to categories, ingredients, formats, preferences. and so on. And there's a welcoming of global trends and hence global brands into the beauty and personal care category, where I think there is still some divergence, and I don't know what will solve the divergence, is this focus on sustainability. Sustainability is very poorly understood in India in general, and somewhere I feel consumers are yet in the what's in it for me mindset or value conscious mindset, as Shivani said. It's really about that still. There's a very small percentage that cares about sustainability, much less understands what truly sustainability is. So I think we have some catching up to do there. Other than that, I think in terms of the sheer product itself, in terms of the, let's say, the functionality of the product or the sort of demand side of the product itself, that's converging quite rapidly.
I do believe we have some time for audience questions. So if there are any, can somebody get a mic to that gentleman on that table?
Yeah.
So, my question is to both Vedang and Shivani. We've seen the advent of quick commerce, right, in the FMCG space. What do you think about fashion and retail as a space, like a same-day delivery or 2-hour delivery model of sorts? Do you think there's some traction there, or is your consumer looking for that?
Actually, we're going to do this next month. Yeah. So, do you look at your stores as a fulfillment center? Yeah. So essentially want to make our stores as a fulfillment center, where if you're the right pin code within a store, because all the warehouses are in Bhiwandi and all that will never be 2 hours. So if like you're next to Bandra, let's say for a Bandra store, if your pin code matches and the product matches which is available at the store, then while you're ordering online, it'll give you like a 2-hour option. But you don't know until you reach the checkout page. It's like Amazon only. At the end, you'll say like 1 day, same day, shit like that, you know. So you'd get that 2-hour option right at the end. But yeah, we think that at least for our products, it's an impulse buy, and getting that whole dopamine hit immediately to you is critical. So it would definitely help consumer experience, and yeah, we are thinking of that.
But that will come at a higher delivery cost. The last mile cost would increase, right?
Not really.
So you think
No.
it won't? Okay. Cool.
Do you want to add in?
So I have two questions. So the first one is more in D2C context when we say that the growth has to be 10x, 15x, 20x. So what are the levers that really make this happen or made this happen for your brands? What are the key levers which worked out? Second is around own website or a super app or a super marketplace. Which one would you prefer out of the two in long term?
For a moment, that sounded like one of my investors, the 10x.
I was thinking of the same thing.
I'm going to take
All
some
of us, I
notes
think,
as
we are
well.
the same sort of. Jokes aside, I think for us, I mean, I can only speak for myself and for what we have done so far, which is still WIP, as I always say. It's really focused on the consumer. You start doing things thinking that is right. You can do that initially as a hypothesis, but you have to verify that hypothesis very quickly. And as you begin to scale, really understand what the consumer wants. For example, the great example we just discussed on, this dopamine rush of getting it like into hours. That's sheer delight. And after a while, believe it or not, even that is going to get commoditized. But if you are the first to sort of get there and be known for that, those are the kinds of things which deliver delight to people. So I think that's one of the big levers for success.
So, I just want to add, essentially, this 10, 15, I think is generally in our own minds. I think if you're an entrepreneur, whether you want to grow 10x, 20x, I mean, I would just say build a company that consumers love, build a company where you want to go to office every day, which your employees love. And The rest is, whether you're a D2C brand, you're a non-D2C brand, you are, whatever company you're building, it will follow, right? So I mean, really, this whole myth around like every D2C brand needs to be 10x within 3 years. Otherwise, you're not large enough or important enough. I mean, my own story, the first 5 years, I think, or the first 3 or 4 years, we were just, we were doing, a few crores a month in sales. It wasn't significant. We were still testing the market. So I don't think all that matters. And I mean, anybody needs to give themselves, like if you're building a brand, you need, I mean, all of us here are 8 to 10 years in, and we're sitting here today, right? So nothing's going to happen overnight. So you have to give yourself a few years first to build it. So on growth, I think a lot of it is personal journey in terms of how you want to look at it, how much money do you want to put in the business, how much do you want to burn. There are so many aspects to looking at, how you want to grow. On the other side, between marketplace and your own business, which is your website direct business in a way, I mean, I am of the opinion that one should, one should again be where the consumer is. For us, for example, there is a huge consumer base on Myntra, which is the largest apparel marketplace in the country. So for us, there's no reason to not be there, to not be aggressive there, to not be selling there. And hence, it's not a trade-off. Myntra is not my competitor. Myntra is our partner. So for us, it is to say that we'll sell through our website and we'll sell through Myntra and Amazon and Flipkart and Nykaa. And there is absolutely no reason to not that. Will there be cannibalization? Yes, absolutely. I mean, the consumer today has a choice of going to either Myntra or say FabAlley.com. But that's all right. As long as the consumer is buying my product, my brand, how does it matter to the business? Assuming commercial sense, there is commercial sense in doing both the channels. I mean, how does it matter, and why should we restrict any? I mean, that's my opinion.
I think the same thing. 10x and all, you just hear all of these, so you're getting very excited about it. But like Rome wasn't built in a day. If you spend a lot, you'll build it in 3 years, but definitely not in a day. I look at the own channel very differently though, because for us, a lot of people are firstly not even buying from the source, so they're buying Harry Potter, right? So what happens is if someone buys it on Myntra, Amazon, they are like, "Maine ye Amazon se kharida hai." They don't remember I bought this from the soul store. So for us, that's not a kind of a sale we want, because we also want to build a brand and have customer retention and things of that nature. So now when we think that enough of people know us, we are excited to sell on marketplaces, and we are also like same thesis. But for the first 4, 5, 6 years, we were like, people are going to not remember us if they buy us on marketplaces. They're just going to be like one of the 20,000 literally t-shirts that are sold on one of these. So that's how we looked at it and how we flipped our thinking as well.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi. First of all, I know Vedang and Shivani since 2014, though I was a part of delivery earlier. I'm a part of supply chain. My name is Tapas, and currently I'm representing Seva Logistics. So I would like to put 2 questions. So the first question is, what is the return percentage for you guys, since you are a D2C expert? After you give the answer, then I'll put the second question. Return percentage, yeah. Being in the apparel segment, though we know the average return is 40%. So what is your return percentage?
I think Vedang's in a fantastic business, the t-shirt business, as I like to call it. But yeah, so their return is sub 10%, which is absolutely amazing, and I think never heard of in this industry. For us, because we're in women's apparel, and trials are, the fits, the trials, all of those are like super critical. So for us, it's actually upwards of about 28-30%. Which is fairly high, but that's the cost of doing business in apparel. Yeah, in women's apparel actually.
Our women's stuff is much higher. I think women are just more pickier, and men don't care or don't have the intelligence to care, whatever it is. But that's the advantage that we have. Okay. So are you solving our returns? I'm sorry.
I don't know. I'm trying to solve that actually. So the second question I would like to put here, since you guys have already created a brand, you know what are your fast-moving goods and all. So since you know the merchandise which are actually liked by customers and sold on platforms. So why don't you guys are reducing your overall merchandise, so that only the liked products could be sold online, so that the return could be reduced and the overall the associated logistic cost could be reduced? what is the,
So I think if I get the question, why have such a large catalog? Essentially, correct?
No, why sell
Yeah.
products that have high returns? I think is that what it
yeah,
is?
since you have lot of artificial intelligence, machine learning, you know what
See-
exactly your consumer,
So
wants.
we actually do exactly what you said. So we track returns on a monthly basis, and we get data. And for high return products, we do a complete check, which is that for sizes, for either mannequins or people in our office trying those out, and for things which we can fix, which is say there was a technical issue in the product or something which has resulted in high returns, we fix it. For things which we can't or we can't, which is like people didn't like it, the color does not look good, the whatever the reason is, we discontinue those products. So we actually very actively act on it to reduce the return rate.
Okay.
Just know that every human being is a unique snowflake, and what a large would be for someone, maybe the chest is matching but the length won't match, or the sleeves are too long, or something of the other, right? So it's easier said than done. You can't just be like, this product will fit everyone. Some products are much easier to fit more people, but something as complicated as a dress and all, like there are just so many different measurements, from sleeve length to chest size to hip size to the actual length, and it's not as easy. It's hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a counter here that's reminding me to start wrapping up. And before we do, I'd love to ask actually all of you just one question, and we can go around. Is what is that one thing that keeps you up at night and you wish you had a magic wand for so you could fix it the next morning?
I think it's customer acquisition cost, CAC.
I'll be original and change my answer then. It would be the fact that when you scale, quality, keeping that consistent is it's burning a lot of calories. So the consistency with scale is what is becoming hard.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's just consumer love and relevance to say that as the brand grows, that there's for fashion you start becoming irrelevant very soon, and you've seen the largest companies in the world shut down because of that. So I think it's just saying that, like, will you always be relevant for the consumers that you're kind of targeting? And I think that's I mean, there's no magic wand, unfortunately, but yeah, that is a problem I think about.
Right on cue. But thank you so much, all of you, for spending the time, and thanks for the questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.